welcome everybody, and we're so happy to have the rare opportunity to visit with meditation teacher Kalyana Mitta, good friend, wonderful, inspirational yogi that I met 54 years ago at our teacher's center, and he and I were fortunate enough to have been able to be students of Venerable Matipala.
So what do you want to talk about?
I could reminisce about my times in Sri Lanka with Bhante when he saved my life in Lelapitya. Or the time we climbed the 6,000 foot Sripada in rubber flip-flops. or a lot of things, but I think rather than reminisce, and also about times at Kandabodha with our teacher and the wonderful monks, Venerable Sivali, Venerable Sivali, Venerable Jnanarama, Venerable Ananda Maitreya, just a wonderful bunch of distinctive monks. But
so Lokam says remembering those venerables is a great thing. So what they taught us those days, we are still trying to do now. The teachers we used to have, they were not like now some of the nowadays teachers that do the teaching in order to get fame or money. They were just genuine teachers. There is a big difference between teachers of those days and what you can find now. Whatever they were giving us, teaching us, was always aimed at us attaining the liberation from samsara.
I think even Satuta Leonard.
So, David, Leonard, you should be happy.
Leonard, David Mercier,
Lokam is asking you whether remember somebody called David Mercier?
no.
American Nekane Kama, Japan, Tata American.
Lokam says his father was an American, whereas the mother was Japanese.
Oh.
Oh,
and he stayed here also for some time in those days, it seems.
Then David, David King met into the line under David King.
No, there is another David. Amuda gave him a new name, David King. So Lokan says, let's start with some questions. I can start with the one you sent, or if you have something else. But firstly, we try to tell Okamudo about the 10 minutes, but he is not very happy because of the translation. That means you have only 5 minutes to answer things. And he
Right.
says some questions, that is not enough time.
It doesn't matter. However long Bhante wants to talk about anything.
Okay.
If I were to start off with a question, I would, in the Satipatthana Sutta, Four Foundations of Mindfulness Sutta, it starts out with Ekayano Ayam Bhikkhave Mago. This is the only way for the purification of beings, for overcoming sorrow and grief and coming to the right path for the attainment of Nibbana. I mean, is that the primary, most significant teaching the Buddha ever gave almost?
තෙරුම කියන්න ඇත්තම බුදුහාමුදුරු ප්‍රධානම ඒව දෙයක් තමයි අර සතිපට්ඨාන. ඒකෙන් ගන්න පුළුවන්.
සතිපට්ඨානය. සතිපට්ඨානව නිතේකයන ඔයම් භික්ඛවේ මග්ගෝ කියන්නේ. වෙන මොකක්ද?
Yeah, that's true, because it really means there is no other path than the Satipatthana path. So it can be considered as the really most important teaching of it. So there are many other suttas or discourses by the Buddha that we have available.
මේ කියා දීලා තියෙනවා මේ ඒකායන මග්ගයට අනුරූප වෙන මේ උපකාර වෙන ධර්ම.
So with those other suttas, what is given is things that support, help, or bring one closer to practicing this soul way.
දැන් අර ඒකායන මග්ග කියන එක ඒක ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන එක.
And this one only way is something that needs to be practiced, that needs to be put in action.
ඒක කියන්නේ දැන් කයින් ක්‍රියාත්මකයි වේදනාවෙන් සිතින් ධම්ම කරුණු හතරෙන්ම ක්‍රියාත්මකයි.
Both the body, feelings or experiencing, mind and mind concomitance of phenomena, both those four things needs to be put in action or turned into practice. For that, there is no specific time put aside. That means other than the time when one sleeps, those four needs to be put in action.
Then
that means whether one is eating, dressing up or stripping down, going to the toilet. These all these things that are normally done, that needs to be done. That is the bodily part, bodily activities that are turned into the practice. In this life, there are these four main things. That is the body. Within the body, you have feeling or experiencing things. Then the mind that kind of perceives that, or kind of makes head or tails out of the things that are being experienced. And because of that happens, because of this kind of figuring out what is being experienced, on top of that there is something bad or good or bad can be happening.
ඒකට ඒකට කිව්ව ධම්මානුපස්සනාව.
So the last bit is this Dhammanupassana.
මේ කරුණු හතර තමයි මේ ජීවිතේ හැම කෙනෙකුගේ හැම වෙලාවෙම පොල් තියෙන එක.
So these four are there for everybody's life, and those four needs to be turned into the way of practice.
ඔය ඒකට ඒක ඒ තියෙන එක ප්‍රැක්ටිස් කරන්නේ නැති එක තමයි වැරද්ද.
So if you just take them as things given, but don't turn them into practice, then that's where it goes wrong.
කය තියෙන එකක්, වේදනාව තියෙන එකක්, එහෙම හේතුවන හිත තියෙන එකක්.
So you have the body, the feelings or experiencing, the mind that might be running here and there,
හොඳ නරක තියෙන එකක්.
and like good or bad things happening within that. So that's what you have.
ඔව් දැන් මේ කරුණු හතර මේ පුරුදු කරනවා.
So you take those four and practice with those.
ඔව් පුරුදු කරන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා මේක පුරුදු කරන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා ඒකට උපකාර ධර්ම බුදුහාමුදුරු දේශනා කළා තියෙනවා.
There, before you can get into the practice, or before you get into this kind of practice, there are things that are assisting getting into the practice, and they have been also explained by the Buddha.
ඔව් මේ සීලය.
One of them is sila or virtue.
ඔව් අපි සීලයක් පුරුදු කරන්න.
So we need to practice virtue or morality.
සීලයක් නිකන් එකක් නෙවෙයි.
It's not just something that like happens automatically.
ඔව් ඒක සීලයටයි තියෙනවා ඉතින් ඉන්ද්‍රිය සංවරය.
Within part of the sila or virtue is indriya samvara, restraint of the senses.
ප්‍රධානම ඉන්ද්‍රිය සංවරය තමයි.
So it's like the summit or the most important part of virtue is actually this sense restraint or self-control.
එතකොට ඒක දැන් සාල්ලේයක සූත්‍රයේ බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ තනිකරම දස කුසලෙන් කියාදිය තියෙනවා.
In this Salayaka Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha gave this explanation, and it is about what is called the 10 wholesome things. And what it pertains, how they are developed, and what other things they are connected with.
Satipatthanayak පුරුදු කරන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා සතිපට්ඨානයට උමනා කරන වටාපිටාව.
So if one wants to practice Satipatthana, so the like grounds where you start practicing the Satipatthana, the setup and circumstances you have to be in, they are given by those things.
මිනිසාගේ සිත මුරුදු කරන්න.
One's mind needs to be softened.
සතුන් මරන්න එපා.
That means not killing living beings.
ඒකෙන් මුරුදු වෙනවා. ඒකෙන්
By not actively avoiding killing beings, the mind gets softer.
ඉතින් මුරුදු නැති ගුරුසු නැති සිතක මේවා පිහිටන්නේ.
If the mind is gross without things like that, such gross or coarse mind cannot properly get into the practice.
ඒක සත්‍ය හොරකම් කරන්න එපා.
So other thing is not stealing.
ඒකට ඒකත් ඉතින් අර මේ සිතේ මේ සංවරේ මේ දැන්පත් ප්‍රේමක මේ කරුණු දාන්න හොඳ භාජන පහයි. පොඩි භාජන පහයි.
So this is like this prepares, softens the mind. There is a level of restraint there. And Lokam says you like prepare 5 kind of vessels by those assisting practices.
බලන්න රටෙක් මරන්න නැතුව ඉන්න මිනිහාගේ සිත කොච්චර සමාධි සම්පන්නද.
Lokam says you can check for yourself if you avoid killing beings, how much the mind goes towards calmness.
හොරකම් කරන්න නැති එක්කෙනාගේ සිත කොච්චර.
Or somebody who is not stealing, that person's mind, how much tranquil or concentrating is
කාමයේ වර්ධව ඇතිවෙන කොච්චර යාගේ සිත බලන්න.
How is the mind of somebody that is avoiding adultery and things like that?
බොරු කියන්නේ.
Or somebody that's not telling lies. So you can check how the mind is kind of softer, kinder So,
Surapane.
or avoiding drinking and other intoxicants.
ඉතින් ඒ භාජන වල තමයි මේ කායානුපස්සනාව පිහිටන්නේ. ඒ භාජන වල තමයි මේ වේදනානුපස්සනාව දාන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ භාජන වල තමයි මේ චිත්තානුපස්සනාව දාන්න පුළුවන්. ඒකේ තමයි මේ ධම්මානුපස්සනාව දාන්න පුළුවන් භාජන තියෙන්නේ.
So it's like you prepare five-fold flower pot, and then with this kind of pot vessel, it's easier to plant the like body, feelings, mind, and phenomena. Practicing the four Satipatthana.
Satipatthana ඉතිස්සෙල්ලා මේ ටිකක් මනුස්සයෙකුට පුරුදු කරන්න ඕනේ.
Actually, a human being needs to practice those things mentioned. That means the virtue and so on. Before practicing the Satipatthana, one needs to practice those other things.
David Leonard අඳුරනවා මං අඳුරනවා එක මංගල කියලා පැවිද්දේ.
So I'm just asking David Leonard whether he knows and remembers this Mangala or Sumangala. Mangala.
ඒ ඇමරිකන් එක්කනේ.
He was an American, it seems.
භාවනා කළා.
And he has done a lot of meditation, it
ඒ
seems.
මංගල ගැන හිතන්නේ උපසම්පදා වෙලා ඉන්න කාලේ.
So if you can think about this Venerable Mangala when he was when you had your higher ordination time, if you can remember this Mangala monk.
He was American?
Yes.
I'm American. Yeah, Holcomb says he was American.
I don't, that doesn't ring a bell.
No, actually, Matakana.
Was he ordained at Kandava?
Holcomb says you went together to Siripada also.
Huh. I don't remember. I thought it was Bhante. It was Bhante, me, Sujata, and Sia.
Sujata, you also me.
And Sia.
Sia. මෙයාගේ නම මොකද්ද? මංගල නෙවෙයිද?
Sujata.
නෑ සුජාත මැරිලා ගියා. එතකොට ඩේවිඩ් දෙනාගේ මානකමේ නම මොකද්ද කියන්නේ?
So what was your name when you were ordained?
I didn't hear that.
What was your bhikkhu name?
Mahinda.
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 So Lokam meant Mahinda. If you can remember this high ordained monk, Mahinda.
Mahinda බලන්න Mahinda ordained කාලේ එතකොට මේ කොච්චර හිතේ ස්වභාවය.
So how was the nature of your mind when you were Venerable Mahinda? Or if you consider the time when you spent some time living with Lokam in the Colombo Meditation Center. So Lokam says because of the because of the nature of your mind in those days, even just remembering those times is a merit. And those things are the helping, assisting things for the practice.
පන්සිල් අටසිල් දසසිල් සාමනේර සිල් උපසම්පදා සිල් ඔක්කොම මේ සීලයන් තියෙනවානේ. සීලේ සතිපට්ඨානයේට වටාපිටාව සතිපට්ඨානය ලගින වටාපිටාව තමයි.
So whether it is 5 precepts or 8 precepts or the 10 precepts or 10 precepts for novices or the high ordained monks precepts, those are considered as kind of sila, kind of virtue one is observing, and those are like the grounds or like circumstances for the practice. You can say background for it. So if that kind of virtue is there, then the Kayanupassana, the first of the Satipatthana works well.
කායානුපස්සනාවේ පිහිටෝන එක සිත එතකොට අනිත් හතර ඒක ලියලා නිසා
So,
අනිත් තුන
තුන.
කරනවා.
so let's say if you practice as your main object, observing one of the bodily objects, the other three Satipatthanas, that is Vedananupassana, Chittanupassana, and Dhammanupassana also flourish. They develop along with the bodily contemplation.
මේ බොල්
Oops. Did he freeze up?
It looks like it.
Yeah.
Oh, they fell off.
Do we lose him?
Yeah.
Oh.
Permanence.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that if you practice mindfulness of the body, the other three mindfulness subjects improve along with your improving on mindfulness of the body. I've never heard that before. That's oh. Hello, Bante.
Oh, me? I'm doing good. How's
Good.
Bante Pemasiri? Remember Nayaka? Bante.
Nalaka.
Yes.
Oh, whatever.
Hey.
Nalakaham.
yes. You are friend, yeah.
It's still Austin, Texas.
Nalaka friend, how many Australian?
Lokamdu says there was a friend of yours that only Australian, where the other Nalaka.
Yeah, Bante Nagita.
Texas, never. Nagi, yes, Nagita.
Nagita.
Okay.
Also,
Who?
Sunita,
Sunita.
America Sunita, Bill. He's good.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes, I remember.
yes.
Sunita also said that.
No.
Yeah.
If I understand,
No.
So shall we continue then?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we gonna?
Lokam says after seeing Nalaka, he has forgotten everything.
That's
Do we-
right.
Do we try a new question?
Alut Krasna Hamuda. Okay.
Does someone
So
have?
Lokam only said he wanted to explain a little bit about sati. So
Hyundai.
okay. Oh, sati kay budbat kiyam.
දැන් අපි දැන් වේදන කාය ගොරෝසු එකක්නේ.
So the body is like comparatively gross or coarse.
මේ ගොරෝසු එකේ ඊට වැඩි ටිකක් සියුම් එකක් තමයි වේදනාව කියන්නේ. ආරම්භනේ.
More fine or subtle as an object is Vedana or translated as feelings.
හැබැයි අර කායානුපස්සනට වඩා ඒකේ සිත සියුම් වුණාට පිහිටනවා වැඩි.
But the thing is, after the mind gets refined by practicing, it is actually easier for the mind than apprehend the object of Vedanas than the relatively coarse bodily objects.
ඉතින් ඒ ගමම අපේ සිත නානා ආරම්මන කරලා පිට දුවනවනේ මේ දුවන.
And in between, the so-called mind runs here and there to some all kind of other object.
දුවන මේ සිත තියෙනවනේ අර වේදනාවටත් වඩා සියුම්.
So this running mind is more subtle, finer than the feelings, the vedana.
ඊටත් වඩා සියුම් මේ අපිට මේ නීවරණ.
So even more subtle or more refined than the mind itself is the other things like different mental concomitants like the hindrances and other things. Or the spiritual faculties or aggregates and things like that. They are even more subtle objects.
ඉතින් ඒකට දෙන්න සියුම් ධර්මතා. හැබැයි අපිට ඒවා හිතන්නේ ලොකු ඒවා ඉතින් නෑ කියනවා හිත දිව්වා ඒවම තමයි හිතන්නේ.
But
අන්නේ ඒවා ඒවා කෙරෙහි මානසිකාර කිරිල්ල නෙවෙයි. මානසිකාර කරන එක එකක්. මානසිකාර කරන එකයි මේ සත්‍යයි දෙකක්.
So, but sometimes people don't think, they kind of disregard these finer or subtler things like the mind running here and there. They are not so happy about those things. And the Lokam says there is another thing is manasikara or noting or like awareness of things is one thing and sati is another thing.
මනසිකාර කරනවනේ අපි දැන් වේදනා ඒකට මනසිකාර කරනවා.
So whatever basically as you are doing your practice, whatever comes up to the forefront, be it the body object, feeling or whatnot, that is noted. And this noting, what Lokam says, is what we call manasikara or attention.
එතනට මනසිකාර කරනකොට එක්කෝ ඒක උපාදාන වෙනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒකේ දෙකෙන් එකක් වෙනවා.
But normally, wherever you get some object, mind starts apprehending an object, what happens together with that is holding on to that thing or conflicting with it. But Lokam says when we say meditation, it means proper practice, not just like doing few hours and then running here and there and doing all kind of other things. So when Lokam uses the word practice or meditation, it means this like all day long devotion to practicing. Or some people, they want to quickly rush up the result and get the result of the practice as soon as possible. So that one goes over. So this paying attention or noting can be some, or is usually connected with a kind of expectations.
මේ චූටි ඔය පාර හොදන්න මට ඕනේ දැම්ම. දැන් යකෝ අර එකෙකුට මන් දෙසරයක් කිව්වා. තුන්දරේකුත් කිව්වා. පස්සරේකුත් කිව්වා. උපාසිකාරාමයට යන දැන් මේකට අපරාධි මේක සැල්ලා මේවනේ උගල්යන් පොඩ. පාර උපාසිකාරාමයට යන ලෙස්සනවා. ඔව්. යන්නේ හේ.
I can explain. No, there were some. No, there were some workers that came and they were supposed to use this like high power cleaning thing in one other place of the center, but they started getting ready to clean just in front of us, which would have disturbed even this session. So Kamdu had to send them away, otherwise we would have been immediately disturbed. So please don't get angry. But Lokamus told them about 5 times and still they couldn't get it. So in that place there was no attention and no sati either.
දැන් මානසිකාර්ය කරනවා මානසිකාර්ය
So we
කරන්නේ
are noting the things that are happening. But Lokam said there is some kind of expectation normally. අර බලාපොරොත්තු තියෙනවා සාමාන්‍යයෙන්.
බලාපොරොත්තු තමයි සද්ධාව.
So this kind of expectation is saddha, faith or confidence.
ඒ සද්ධාව තමයි මුල්ම එක.
That the root or beginning of the practice is that.
කොහොම කිව්වත් සද්ධාවනේ.
But many people lack this saddha or faith or confidence.
සද්ධාව තියෙනවා කියලා තමයි කියන්නේ.
So what needs to be said is for the people that have saddha.
ඒ සද්ධාව ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන එක තමයි mindfulness හැදෙන්න හේතුව.
So the cause for arising of mindfulness is like one has faith and one like wants to develop mindfulness, and that is the root or the cause for developing mindfulness or something.
දැන් සද්ධාවයි කියන්නේ බුදුහාමුදුරන්ගේ අවබෝධයනේ.
So here saddha especially means the belief or faith in the enlightenment of the Buddha.
බුදුහාමුදුරන්ගේ අවබෝධයනේ මේ අපි මේ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නේ.
Because what we are trying to achieve is the same thing. That means the enlightenment that has been found by the Buddha.
ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන එක තමයි ඒකායන මාර්ගය.
And this ekayana maggo, this soul way, or the unique only path is this when we try to actualize that enlightenment for us.
ඒකායන මාර්ගයේ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනකොට දාර මානසිකාර්ය කියලා කිව්වනේ.
So you put in action the path that should lead to this enlightenment, and that starts with noting, paying attention.
මානසිකාර්යේ ඵලය ඇති වෙනවා ඒකෝට.
So after, as you practice, this noting or paying attention brings results.
මානසිකාර්ය අපි 100ක් කළොත් ඵලය ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන් එකක්.
If you do it like 100% units, the result might be just 1 unit.
ඒකට කියන සත්‍යයි.
This result that Lokambu talks about here is called sati, usually translated as mindfulness.
මානසිකාර්ය කළා ඇලිලා ගැටිලා හැමගක් දේවල්.
Because the manasikar, the noting happens very often with this either holding on to or conflicting.
ඒ අතරතුර ආරමුණු කීපයක් ඇලෙන්නේ නැතුව ගැටෙන්නේ නැතුව මෙහෙය කරලා තියෙනවා.
But in between here and there is an object noted without any like holding on to and without any
ඒකට
conflict.
කියනවා mindfulness.
So that is what Lokam says is sati or mindfulness.
ඔය mindfulness මම කියන්නේ mindfulness නේ.
So mindfulness is not just sitting like this being spaced out.
මේ mindfulness වල මේ මික්ස් වෙන්නේ අවිද්‍යාව.
So this mindfulness is never mixed with avidya or ignorance.
ඒකේ මික්ස් වෙන්නේ තණ්හාව.
And it's not ever mixed up with tanha or craving.
මානසිකාර්යයේ අවිද්‍යාව එක්ක මික්ස් වෙනවා ඒක තණ්හාව මික්ස් වෙනවා.
But with just noting or attention, still the craving as well as ignorance is mixed up. Actually, if the sati is not there, at least one of them is there.
ඒ නිසා තමයි ඒකායන මාර්ගෝ.
So that's another reason why the Buddha calls it ekayana maggo, soul way, the only way.
ඒක තමයි වැඩිපුරම සත්‍ය ගැන කතා කරන්නේ.
And that's why the teachers, even the old teachers, always talk about sati or mindfulness and stress out the importance of sati or mindfulness that much.
ඒ සතිපට්ඨානෙ කියන්නේ.
So then the sutta is called Satipatthana sutta, or the practice is called Satipatthana.
ඒකට mindfulness එක මේ බලයට පුරුදු කරන්න බෑ. හැදෙන ඵලයක් පුරුදු කරන්නේ මානසිකාර්යය.
So one cannot forcefully try to get sati. It just so you have like patiently but without like break practice this paying attention, noting, and as a result, but that's result that you cannot make it arise by force. It just at one point starts happening is sati.
ඉන්නවනේ ගෝලියෝ කවුරු ඒගොල්ලන්ට කියද්දින මේ මානසිකාරය.
So what do we teach the students is manasikara, or this noting or paying attention.
මොනවද මේ කනවයි කියන්නේ දෙන්න විශ්වයට.
So some people or even some students might have, what is this like thing about like eating, know that you are eating, know that you are walking. What kind of crazy story is that? The reaction of some people.
තාක්කොටක් දින මානසිකාරය කරපු තරමට මේ හිත එකඟ වෙන්න ඕනේ විනාඩි 10ක් 15 එහෙම වෙන්නේ.
So the other people might have this crazy and wrong idea that the one-pointedness of mind arises to the proportionately to the level which you force yourself to know things, and usually they want to get the very concentrated mind as soon as possible. So they have idea if they really forcefully note everything in a kind of unnatural way, they should get very good concentration even within 10 minutes.
mindfulness එක කාය යොමු කරනවා.
So the proper way is you try to use whatever is there connected with the body for the paying attention. So we are noting the body.
එහෙම කරගෙන යනකොට මේ ක්‍රමානුකූලව ටික ටික වැඩි වෙනවා ඇලෙන්නේ නැතුව ගැටෙන්නේ නැතුව ඇති වෙන ප්‍රමාණය.
So the amount, so as you go on noting the body and so on, little by little, the amount of the times where the noting happens without any grasping or holding on to, without conflicting, the amount of those occasions starts increasing.
ක්‍රමානුකූලව එතන හැදෙනකොට ඒකව සතිපට්ඨානෙ දීතියයි කියලා කියනවා.
And as that gradually develops, then one can say the Satipatthana or establishments of mindfulness are developed.
සතිපට්ඨානෙ පිළිගන්න සතිපට්ඨානෙ ඒ විදිහට පිළිගන්න මේ ඔහුගේ වචනේ වෙනස් වෙනවා. ඔහුගේ සිත වෙනස් වෙනවා.
So as you continue doing that, one's speech and one's mind is changing.
මොකද කියන්නේ?
What is the change that happens?
ඔක්කොම මනස වෙනස් වෙනවා.
The whole mind changes by doing that.
ඔක්කොම බලන්න ඕනේ ඒක තමයි වීර්යය කියන්නේ.
So Kam says what the change is there is virya, or the mental effort,
ඒක තමයි වායාමයේ කියන්නේ.
or the physical effort or effort in altogether.
ඒකෙන් පිට නැහැ.
So that means for that person there is nothing outside of the practice.
බලන්නකො මේක තමයි බුදුහාමී. ඔක තමයි බුදුහාමී දාන.
So that's what the Buddha was explaining like more than 2,500 years ago.
මේක සතිපට්ඨාන නිගම මේ දුත් ඒක නෙමෙයි මේ ප්‍රැක්ටිකල් ජීවිතේ.
This is
බුදුහාම පුරුදු කරපු ජීවිතේ මේ යන ජීවිතේ.
He's not now trying to like connect it with suttas in a kind of scholarly way. What he talks about is how this Satipatthana develops in practice for people that are truly practicing.
ඒකට බුදුහාම ලස්සන ටිකක් කියනවා පන්නානං වා කුසලානං ධම්මං.
So then this level of virya or mental effort has been very nicely described by the Buddha. It's, the unarisen wholesomeness for arising of that. That is the
පන්නානං
effort.
වා කුසලානං ධම්මං.
And for the already arisen unwholesomeness, like abandoning of that.
පන්නානං වා පාපකානං ධම්මං.
So, and for the unarisen unwholesomeness, for the preventing of unarisen unwholesomeness.
කොහොම මනසක්ද එතකොට?
So then if you consider that kind of mind, you can see how beautiful or nice that kind of mind must be.
සබල් මනසක් නෙවෙයිනේ.
That's not like rubbish mind.
මේක මොනවා කන්නේ අපි මොකක් කන්නේ
There is not even one fault in such a kind
මේ
of mind.
කරුණු හතරක් එතන පිටලා තියෙනවා
4 things have been established there.
ඉතින් එයා තමයි හොඳ යෝගියා
So that is a good yogi.
ඒ good යෝගේ එකපාරට ගන්න බෑ
You
සමානුකූලව
cannot become all of a sudden a good yogi. This is a gradual process, step by step.
තමනුත් ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙමින්
By one's activities, what one is doing, one slowly gets that.
ඒකට උපකාර වෙන දහම් කරුණු ටිකක් වතාවිතාවේ
And there are like background assisting things that help one to get there.
ටික ටික පුරුදු කරන්න ඕනේ වතාවිතාව
But first one needs to start with practicing those background assisting things.
මේකට මූලිකම ධර්මතා ටිකක් තියෙනවා
And there are some root or beginning things for that.
සතක අපිට වෙන්න බෑ මොකද ඒ සූත්‍රේ මේ සාධිගේ සූත්‍රේ පැහැදිලි තියෙනවා මේක නේද සූත්‍රේ සතක අපිට වෙන්න බෑ අන්නේ කරුණු ටික කියන්නකො පොඩ්ඩක් මේක නැති වුණත් කමන්නේ
So there are in Vaikhanasa Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya in the second 50, there are things that are necessary.
ඒක තියෙන්නම යෝගියෙකු ස්වභාවිකතා
They talk about the nature of a good yogi. Tama guru tekkara kapati natu. So there are like things when you are with a teacher, you have to be completely honest, and things like that are mentioned in that particular sutta. So one needs to have this Hiryottappa, which is very difficult to translate. One of them is like sense of shame, and the other one is fear of wrongdoing, let's say. But they are like we don't have any better translation. So Hiryottappa is needed. Other things mentioned are being completely honest and not deceiving and things like that. So this talks mostly about very pure mind state. Those are needed for one's life. So Lokam says, let's say Vinita, me comes to Lokam for practice, to ask him to start practicing. So Lokam firstly tries to establish those things in me, not Satipatthana. So those other things, and only after that is established the Satipatthana. Like you thoroughly like laundry the person, and then when the person is clean and clear and ready, then the instruction for Satipatthana comes. So if you simplify the definition of sati, it's this quality of mind which keeps it free from holding on to and conflicting with things. So because if this holding on to or grasping happens, that is kind of called what is called abhijja, this strong grasping, or the opposite of that is dominance, is like dejected mind, which means kind of conflicting, not wanting. So this, the thing that is keeping the mind and experience out of those two, that is sati.
දැන් මොනවා හරි ගුණ ධර්මයක් මේක විතරක් නෙමෙයි ඒ සත්‍ය සතිපට්ඨානෙ විතරක් නෙවෙයි
So then the sati does not exist only within Satipatthana, but anytime there are good qualities working in a person, there is certain amount of specific level of sati.
අපි මොනවාරි පරිත්‍යාගයක් කරනවා කියන්නේ?
So let's say you are just doing some act of, performing some act of generosity.
ඒකේ සතිය තියෙන්න බෑ. සතිය නැතුව ඒක වැඩන්නේ.
So Lokan says you cannot do it without some amount of sati being within that.
මම මොනවාරි දීලා විනීතද?
So let's say I gave something to Vinita,
මම බලාපොරොත්තු.
but I have some kind of expectations. So then the Lokan says like true good qualities, if they are true good qualities, there is some amount of sati there.
දානේ තනිකර සතියත් එක්ක ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන එක.
So proper giving happens with clear, very pure kind of sati within the giving.
හැබැයි ඒක සතිපට්ඨානයි කිව්වේ නෑ.
But that one is not called Satipatthana.
ඒක සතිය තියෙන දානේ.
But sati within giving and other wholesome good activities that are not Satipatthana practice, sati is there, but they are not called Satipatthana.
ඔව් දැන් අපි කියමු මේ දහම් දේශනා කරනවා.
Let's say somebody is giving a Dhamma talk.
ඒක දහම් දේශනා කරනවා කියන එකත් ඒකමයි.
So that within that also you find sati.
ඒ දහම් දේශනා කිරීම නිකම් මේ මගේ ලොකුකම පේන්න මේ මං
But it's proper Dhamma talk, so you are not motivated by getting famous or money or other things. It's just a proper Dhamma talk. So within such a Dhamma talk, sati arises.
එතනත් නෑ සතිය. එතන සතිය තියෙනනම් අර විදිහට තමයි. මගේ බුදුහාම කියන්නේ එක මේ මගේ එකක් නෙවෙයි.
So actually when one gives a Dhamma talk, it's Dhamma means the Buddha's teachings. So actually one is just giving the Buddha's teachings.
මං හදපු එකක් නෙවෙයි.
It's not something I came up with myself.
ඒක මේ බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ කල්ප ගාන පුරුදු කරලා හදාගත්තේ.
It's something that the Buddha or the Bodhisattva had to like train himself for a number of years to achieve the Buddhahood.
ඒකේ ලොකුකමක් මට ගන්න බෑ.
So it's really one can't take credit for that because it was like really practiced to and attained by the Buddha.
ඉතින් මං ඒක ඒ විදිහට දෙනවා ඒක.
So one needs to just give it in the way the Buddha was talking about it. So in the Dhamma talk there is sati, but it's not called Satipatthana. So even if David Leonard is explaining the practice to others, there is sati, but the Upatthana is not there.
ඒ වගේ මේ අපේ මේ කුසල් තියෙනවානේ.
Oh.
මොනවාරි දස කුසල් තියෙනවා. වෙయ్య වචාර.
So there are these 10 grounds of doing merits or 10 things that are connected with the wholesome.
ඒ සෑම කුසලයක්ම
There are things like giving, virtue, showing respect to people, doing this chores and obligations and things like that. So within those things you find sati, but still it's not this Upatthana. Or if you talk in an endearing, nice way with somebody, again the sati is there, but it is not considered as Satipatthana. By those nice endearing words, that person's minds might get a lot of relief and get in a very good condition.
බුදුහාමුදුරන් ඩොංගා ප්‍රිය වෙන්න හේතුව තමයි බුදුහාමුදුරන්ගේ කතාව ගෝසප්පකන්.
So in the Buddha's times, because of this specific Buddha's quality, he had a very endearing even voice and way of expressing. There are 4 ways connected with teaching, and a successful teacher has like good looks, let's say, a good voice, good aesthetic looks, and good Dhamma, good teachings. So in the Buddha's case, all four of them were there, and Lokam says this, very often he became dear to people, or people very quickly had taken to the Buddha because of his the quality of Buddha's voice and speech.
තමාගේ ගුණධර්මය වචනයත් එක්ක අරිනවා. වචනයත් එක්කම මේ ගුණධර්මය.
So it was the good Dhamma qualities within the Buddha were like being broadcasted to others through the Buddha's speech.
එතකොට මේක ඇවිල්ලා ඉවරයි පුජ්‍යලේ.
So then the attachment in that person finished with that.
එතකොට ප්‍රිය වචනය කවුරු ප්‍රිය වචන රසුණක් කැමතිද?
So even animals might react in a good way to kind of nice voice.
ගැටිච්ච වචන වලට කැමති නැහැ.
So nobody likes like words, or let's say words that are connected with conflict.
එතකොට අර ප්‍රිය වචනයෙන් තමයි යාගේ සිතේ එකගතයක් සමාධියක් ඒවම.
So the people that listen to the Buddha, and we can try to do the same thing by endearing, nice and beneficial speech, the person's mind, the listener's mind gets calmed down and starts unifying.
මං ආයේ මුලට යනවා කියන්න පොඩ්ඩක්.
Oh.
සත්‍ය කියන්නේ
So Alokama says, now let's go back to the beginning.
සත්‍ය කියන්නේ කුසලය තනිකර පිරිසිදු.
So sati means the purest kind of wholesomeness.
ඒක ආරක්ෂා වීම වීර්ය
What protects that is virya or mental effort.
මේකේ මෙන්දීම
And what the virya is making is staying in as much as possible in this kind of highest or purest wholesomeness. And what is called samadhi or concentration or kind of recollectedness of mind is after staying for a longer time in this pure wholesome mind, automatically the mind gets kind of one-pointed concentrated. And there is a way of recognizing it connected with the concentration. So one can recognize concentration when one recognizes that the unwholesomeness is not entering the experience. So as one is staying at the level of concentration, samadhi, the unwholesomeness is really not entering the picture. And with that virya also the effort is kind of increased, and there are two things with the effort. So samadhi is not a new thing.
කුසලයන් තුලම ඒ කුසලයන් මනසිකාර කරමින් පෝ ඒ කුසලයන් වල නැත්තම් මේ අකුසලයන් ඉන්නත් තිබීම හෝ කියන මේ කරුණු දෙක තමයි සමාධියේ තියෙන්නේ.
ඒ කරුණු දෙක මොකද?
එක්ක අකුසලයන් ඉන්නේ නැහැ.
ඔව්.
එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒක උඩ සමාධිය නැත්තම් මානසිකාරෙම තැන්පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා.
So there are these two things, the unwholesomeness not coming into the picture, and or by noting the mind gets calm.
මම ඊයේත් මේක කිව්වා ඊයේත් මේකත් කිව්වා ඒ නිසා කර්ම තුනක් ඒකේ ලියනවා actually.
But now as a result of this calmness and concentration, three things come to surface.
ඒ කර්ම තුන ඒ කර්ම තුන
Oops. Do we lose him?
Yep.
Yeah. He has a really interesting.
කරුණු තුනක් ලියන.
So look, I don't know where you were cut off. So Lokam said within this concentration, three things come to surface.
ඒ කරුණු තුන තමයි මේ තිලක්ෂණය කියලා.
So these three things are the so-called tilakkana or so-called three characteristics.
ඒක ලියලා නැත්නම් ඒ සමාධිය පුනර්භවය ලියලා නැකේ පුනර්භවය.
So if those three things that don't like surface or come to the front or become visible, obvious within the concentration, even that concentration itself becomes a substrata for bhava, for renewed existence.
ලියලනවා නම්
But if the three are there, if these three appear within,
ඒ කරුණු තුන ලියලා නැහැ බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ දැක්කා කිං කුසල කාර්යයත්
so actually the Bodhisattva, when he was studying with Alara Kalama and Uddaka Ramaputta, those two teachers of these immaterial attainments that the Bodhisattva went to. So because within that concentration, he did not could not see the three characteristics appearing. That's why he left them. Saying still he's the Yankusala Gavasi, he's still searching what is the real wholesome thing.
යම් ආරම්භණයක් වුණොත් ඒ ආරම්භනේ සමාධිය හරි මොකක් හරි වෙන එකක් තියෙනවා නම් මේ කරුණු තුනෙන් හැදිච්ච එකක්.
So whatever object, whether it is happening together with concentration or whatnot, it is riding on at least one of those three things. It has been like produced by those three things.
පිටින් හැදිච්ච එකක් නෙවෙයි.
It's not that the three things are arising outside of the experience,
එතකොට
like outside of the object or as something new or extra.
නිත්‍ය කියලා හදාගන්න.
But
කියලා හදාගන්න.
so what is being produced normally within us is permanence.
කරුණු තුන
And
ඒ කරුණු තුනේ අනිත් පැත්ත තේරෙනවා.
and so like we understand those three in the opposite way. So we understand something as permanent or like nice or good or as self.
ඒ කරුණු ප්‍රතිත්‍ය ගැන තේරෙන්නේ. ඉතින් තේරෙනකොට මොකක්ද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ?
So but if you understand them properly,
ආරම්භනේ නැහැ.
so then the object actually cannot be there.
මේ තියෙන්නේ හොඳ හරි මේක මේ තියෙන්නේ.
So because we think those opposite of those three are there, that's why we have objects.
ලෝකෙ නැති දෙයක් කියා දුන්නා. ලෝකෙ තිබිච්ච නැති එකක් කියා දුන්නා.
So the Buddha explains about something that was not there in the world.
තිබිච්ච දෙයක් කියා දුන්නේ.
He did not explain something that he did not explain that was something already available in the world. So that means, okay, in the times of the Buddhas before our Buddha, the teachings were there, but when the Bodhisattva attained Buddhahood, those teachings were not available. So what he was teaching and explaining, it was about something that was not available in the world at that time. So people got kind of freaked out and stressed out. Even the divine beings, deities, they were really like freaked out. It's like he made them open the eyes to see the reality, and it was a shocking experience. Most people actually, when they start seeing a little bit of the three characteristics, they are completely like terrified. So Lokam says, I myself, if I start getting some experience of three characteristics, I am terrified.
එතකොට
Because then if you start understanding that, that means you just let go of things, abandon this kind of existence. Huh?
පිටක විචාර පීති දුකේක වඩා ගන්න මාර්ගයක් ගන්නද කියලා මම හිමින් තමයි ඔයාලට කියන්නේ.
So Lokam is now it's kind of like example and joke. So he says, now Vinita, and he is using very endearing soft voice and is very in a friendly manner telling me, now Vinita, you really need to develop these 5 things. That is the applied soul, along with rapture or joy, happiness and one-pointedness. So those 5, please, you have to develop.
ඔය භවයෙන් නම් අයින් වෙන්න. භවය කියන්නේ සිදුවීමනේ. ඒකෙන් නම් අයින් වෙන්න එපා. ඒකෙන් නම් අයින් වෙන්න එපා ඔයා.
So it's like telling me what is called bhava or existence or happenings. Please don't get removed from that if I tell him things.
හිමින් හරි මොනවෙන් හරි කියා දෙන්න.
Anytime you are like softly talking to people, it's usually like that.
මම මේ සතිපට්ඨානයයි මේ සතියයි වීර්යයයි මේ ඔය මේ සමාධියයි ප්‍රඥාව තමයි කිව්වේ.
So this last thing about the 3 understanding the 3 characteristics is panya, or called wisdom or experiential understanding. So Lokam says what the practice is really about. We don't need to think about the things. Is developing sati combined with virya or mental effort, and that leads to panya or this experiential understanding. So this panya or wisdom or experiential understanding arises in us extremely rarely. What arises in us is something that looks like wisdom. Even that one is necessary. It is necessary in order to stay in an okay way within the existence. So like I need that kind of something like wisdom to teach people. Or if I need to like manage or organize some work, I need something like a wisdom. But for that you don't need the Buddha. You can learn about those things from different sources. You don't need the Buddha himself. So there is like knowledge and understanding about normal things. So let's say if you want a support beam or a pillar, so you have to learn somewhere the thickness and materials you need to use for a successful pillar to support something. But again, those are just knowledge and understanding you can get from other sources in the normal society. But those things, they cannot really help the panya, this specific wisdom or specific experiential understanding called panya. The only thing that help to like develop that is the other spiritual faculties. That's confidence, mental energy, sati and concentration. So those are things that like grow and flourish in our hearts. There is something called the Eightfold Noble Path. And these 5 things that Lokam spoke of, they are part of this Eightfold Noble Path. So, but for that, one needs to put action, even the physical body. Even though there are things that grow in our heart or in our mind, but you need to put even your physical body in action in order to develop those things. And the main things connected with the body as the parts of the Eightfold Noble Path is speech, action, and livelihood. for those what works with those and what is like there with those things is saddha or faith or confidence.
කය ක්‍රියාත්මක කයයි වචනයේ ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්න ඕනේ මේ හදවත ඇති නැති බන.
And so and anyway, so this
වෙන ප්‍රශ්නයක් තිබුණා කියන්නේ.
when a prasna, so Lokam says that should be enough. So if you have some other question, but 10-minute question. I don't know if they can. Yeah, David Leonard is back. So I think enough stamina for about 20 minutes, but not more than that. So.
Does anyone have a question?
I was going to ask Bante if he has any stories about Bante Sivali. Any old stories?
කතා පරණ කතාව තියෙනවාද ලොකු හඳුලා?
මොකක්ද ඇහුවත් නම් කියන්න පුළුවන් කියන්න.
No, he says if you mention some of them, you might remember them, but out of the blue, ලොකු හඳු හරි හඳු කියන හිතුවත් කතාව ඉක්දැතම ඇති වෙනවා ලොකු හඳු.
අද සීවලියන්ව ගැන හිතන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතින් මම දැකපු සිල්වත් අය අතර උඟාක්ම ඉහළම සිල්වත් එක්කෙනෙක්.
So Lokam says.
තාම මට ඒ ගානට එක්කෙනෙක් හම්බෙලා නැහැ.
So Lokam says when he thinks especially about virtuous people, he thinks Bante Sivali would be number 1 on the list. Lokam says he actually since that time he has not met anybody as pure and virtuous as Bante Sivali.
ඉතින් හම්බේ ඉන්නවා ආරණ්‍යවල.
There might be some, but Loko Hamdu hasn't met them really.
ඒවා ඉතින් මම ඒගොල්ලෝ ළඟ ඇසුරු කරන්නේ මම ළඟ ඇසුරු කරලා.
But actually there might be people like that and that Loko Hamdu met, but it is proper to talk about somebody's level of virtue only after some amount of associating with that person for a longer time. So he knows with Bante Sivali because he is associated with him for a long time. So that's why he considers him as the highest virtuous person. So meeting people like that is a real pleasure. So now Lokam says so there might be people like that, but I have not seen them myself.
I was with Bhikkhu Sivali and I was thinking, this was when he was in America, and I was thinking how important Sila is. And I just said to him, I said, boy, Sila, virtue is really important. And he said, what else do we have?
Sila Hamdu America ඉන්නකොට then David Leonard වැටුණේ සීල හරි වැදගත්. ඉතින් සීවලි හැමෝට කිව්වා අර මම සීල හරි වැදගත්ම නේ. ඒ සීවලි හැම කිව්වා ඒක තමයි සීල හැර අපිට මොකද තියෙනවා.
දැන් ඩේවිඩ් රිතන්ඩ ඒ වගේ කෙනෙක් ඩේවිඩ්ගේ අතේ මලා. So
I don't know, it seems Lokam says like Bante Sivali died in your hands or something like that. Like you were probably there by his deathbed. So Lokam says you consider this extremely virtuous person, like spending the last moments with that person.
it's what they say then
So he died in Hawaii, it seems.
Yeah.
Lokam says it might not be so good to remember the death for you.
Oh.
And I think like for demand, it might be still a bit so like sad occasion. So your mind your mind might not be very happy while remembering that.
เออนี่ถ้าเนี่ยนี่